we come to Jesus, but we look at him more like a salad bar. And we start to go down the salad bar and we go, there's some forgiveness. I want that on my plate. And so we put that on our plate. We go a little bit further and we go, there's some grace. I want that on my plate. I'll take that on my plate. That's good. Let me read verse 10, or verse 10 we read. Now, after looking around at them all, he said to him, stretch out your hand. And he did so, and his hand was restored. Now, Luke tells it that way, but Mark adds a detail. And Mark, when he tells the story there on your outline, it says he looked around at them in anger, underline that, and deeply distressed by their stubborn hearts, and said to the man, stretch out your hand. Here's what we learn from this, and please write this down. And there's probably a better way to say it, so if you have a better way. But in the Gospels, the only time that Jesus gets angry is at judgmental religious people. So people mess up, woman caught in adultery, he's not angry. But when people are religious and critical of other people, that seems to really bother him. Verse 10, it says, and after looking around at them all, he said to him, stretch out your hand. And he did so, and his hand was restored. So the next thing that you want to write down here, it says, when Jesus gives the command to do something, he always gives the ability to do it. Always gives the ability. Luke emphasizes the authoritative approach that Jesus takes earlier in the service. Now, we don't know if we have the whole sermon or we have highlights of the sermon. It could be more than that. So we don't know if the man's been standing with Jesus for a minute, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. We don't know. We just know that he calls the man up. But he called the man up, and the man came up, and he's standing there with Jesus. And then after maybe several minutes, Jesus says, stretch out your hand, and he stretches out his hand. And so what we notice is that he was obedient. The emphasis here is on the man's obedience to what it is that Jesus said. His obedience led to the result that we would all be hoping for. So I want to say something. And as I say this, I'm not saying this in the sense of you people, because that's not the heart at all. But I am going to say something, and my hope is that you would at least consider and evaluate. Many people are not getting the results that this man received in his relationship with Jesus. I would suggest, in part, that because in our generation, we have what would be described as a salad bar faith. What I mean by that. Come to Jesus, but we look at him more like a salad bar. And we start to go down the salad bar and we go, there's some forgiveness. I want that on my plate. And so we put that on our plate. We go a little bit further and we go, there's some grace. I want that on my plate. I'll take that on my plate. That's good. And then there's some moral things that the Bible talks about. And some of us say, yes, I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna put that on my plate. I want that. Others look on and say, no, I'm not ready for that. I'm gonna leave that on the salad bar. And then you go a little bit further, and some other things that God talks about, like putting God first in our relationships, our finances, our time. And some people say, okay, I want that. I'll take that and I'll put that on my plate. Other people look at that and they go, no, I don't want that on my plate. I'm going to leave that on the salad bar. That can stay there. Well, you go a little bit further, and you know where the Bible says to desire earnestly the more spiritual gifts or the greater gifts, and the Bible talks about things of the Spirit. And some people say, okay, yeah, I want that on my plate. I want that. I certainly want that on my plate. But other people look on and they go, no, I don't want that on my plate. I've seen people who put that on their plate and they're weird. And so I'm going to leave that on the salad bar. And so I don't want that. So here's the thing. When we have a salad bar faith, well, we're deciding what we want on our plate, but we're deciding what we're going to leave on the salad bar. When we do that, what we are doing is we are dictating the relationship to God. This is what I will accept, but I will not accept this. And so I'll leave that there. When we are the ones who are dictating the relationship to God, we don't mean it, But what we're doing is we're placing ourselves in the position of God because we're telling God, this is what I accept, this is what I don't accept, and that's just how it has to be. Thank you. And guys, this is why so many people are frustrated in their walk with the Lord, because we have a salad bar faith where we're determining what we'll take and what we won't. So imagine this man. Let's say if he would have had a salad bar faith, if Jesus would have said, come up here, and he says, okay, I want that on my plate. And he stands up and he walks up in front and he's there with Jesus. He said yes to that, wants that on his plate. That's good. But then Jesus, a few minutes later, says, now I want you to stretch forth your hand. And he were to go, I'm not putting that on my plate, because if I stretch out my hand and I'm not healed, I'm going to look like an idiot, and people are going to make fun of me, and so I'm not ready for that. I'm not ready to do that. So if he were to say, no, I came up here, I'm comfortable with that, but no, I'm not stretching out my hand. How do you think this story would have ended? Well, it probably would not have ended with the hand being restored. Can we agree with that? So he didn't just come forward and say, okay, I'll come forward. But he also, when he was called to stretch forth his hand, he was restored. He did not have a salad bar faith. You want the results that this man received in his life. And if you want those results, please consider, as you think this through, you're probably not going to get those results with a salad bar kind of faith, where you're the one dictating, I want this, I don't want that, I'll take this, but I'm leaving that on the salad bar. Because that places you in the position of God, where you're the one dictating the relationship.